So, first things first, Alex, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm alright.
Good.
So, before we talk about your record, I'd like to jump back to the beginning. And you studied music.
Yep.
Do you still own a saxophone?
I do, I own two. But I haven't, I don't really play it much anymore. Okay. I've played it maybe twice this year, I think.
Okay.
I've definitely stepped away from it a little bit, but I do still own them, and I probably won't ever give them away.
But you don't miss it?
Beg pardon?
You don't miss it?
I don't, no, not really. I don't think I do, yeah.
Because, well, like I say, you studied music. Was it early on that you knew that you wanted to go down that route?
Yeah, for sure. I think when I was 4 years old or something, I told my mum that I wanted to play the saxophone, and it was just always I don't know, a part of my life. Playing music was just something that it was kind of a given. Okay. But then when I was 14, I was yeah, this is what I really want to do. Yeah.
But did you say it was always part of your life, even since you were 4 years old? So were your parents very musical, or?
No, not at all. I'm the only person in my family who plays music at all. But I think that I just had very encouraging parents who didn't really have the opportunity to learn when they were younger. They were both from pretty kind of poor backgrounds, and right. I think learning music unfortunately is a privilege.
Right.
And so I think when I was I want to do this, they wanted to give me that opportunity. And I think took a lot of pride in the fact that they could give that to their child. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
this might be difficult to pinpoint, because especially at that early age, but do you know why you gravitated towards music?
No, I think although my parents and my mum in particular doesn't play music, she has a deep appreciation for it. Okay. And so music has always been around me, even though it hasn't necessarily been watching someone that I know closely playing in my house or something like that. It's just I've always been around it. Yeah.
So did she turn you on to people like Dolly Parton and Bruce Springsteen?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. She's the biggest Bruce Springsteen fan. Okay. Yeah.
And well, for you then, what did you hear in Bruce Springsteen?
I think just stories, and not necessarily I love you and you don't love me back sort of stories, but stories about where, he grew up and his family and the people that he surrounds himself with, and those sort of things that are kind of go beyond your traditional, I guess, love song kind of narrative that a lot of songs sort of tap into.
So when you started writing your own songs, and I don't know what age this was, but when you started kind of writing your own songs, did you gravitate towards the storytelling aspect of it?
Yeah, I remember the first few songs I wrote when I was 14, and I was sort of teaching myself how to play guitar, was sort of about friends, or about I remember I wrote a song about this teacher that I didn't like, or
Okay.
that sort of stuff, because also I'd never been in relationships, or I'd never been in love, and all that stuff came later. But I definitely didn't try to write about things that I didn't know about. Sure. And not necessarily consciously. It was just I can write about whatever I want, and this is what I feel about, this is what I feel strongly about at this point in my life.
Musically, what did those first songs sound like?
Pretty acoustic guitar based, pop kind of music. Yeah.
Because you did play in another band.
Yeah.
I have the name written down somewhere. Animeaux?
Yeah.
Animeaux?
Yeah.
But at what point did you know that wasn't kind of the type of music that you wanted to make?
I think with Animeaux, that was a sort of 7-piece pop band with horns and stuff, and they were all, the people that I was playing with were all friends of mine from the school big band, the jazz orchestra. And so I guess the music was kind of reflective of that. It was very sort of dancey kind of music. Not in an electronic sense, but in a sort of more jazz kind of based way. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of fell into that and was sort of writing for that. But then I think my songwriting sort of started skewing away from it, and not necessarily consciously, but I was just maybe listening to music that wasn't quite parallel with what that band was doing, and sort of finding my own identity. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an interesting point, finding your own identity, and then I'm going to fast forward a little bit, because to where we are now. Do you have the feeling that now you've kind of found the type of music that you want to make, and the direction you want to go in?
Yeah, I don't really think about it all that much.
Okay.
I think I just do it and sort of see how it sounds. And I guess like so far it's been like pretty cohesive, but I don't like, I would hate to sort of like go into my next record and listen back to it and be like, oh no, it's not like the first one, you know, I need to think about it again because it sounds different. Like I think I just want to be as like genuine as possible and sort of like let it happen as well. Yeah.
So when you went well in your own direction and then it was just you, was it liberating or nerve-wracking as well?
Both. It was sort of like I don't think I necessarily realized the like responsibility that came with that initially. Like with that other band, like it was very like in theory like a very collaborative kind of project. And then I remember going into like one of the earlier band rehearsals for this like solo project and sort of being like, oh, I've written a song, like let's jam it out and see what happens. And I remember my drummer, who's still with me, was saying, he's like, no, that's not the gig. Like you need to give us the parts. That's up to you. Like this is your show. Right. And I remember leaving that and being like, oh, like he's right. He's totally right. And I need to figure that out. And so that was kind of like a welcome challenge and it took a little bit of time and a lot of trial and error to sort of like figure out how to communicate those ideas to my band and to, you know, whoever I'm recording with or whatever. But the payoff from that is like the best. Like it's that having that autonomy and having that language as well to sort of like articulate those ideas is awesome. Yeah.
Was there a turnaround with the song or maybe that there was a track that you think, okay, now I'm able to communicate what I want and
Yeah, I think like, I mean, a lot of the tracks on my EP, or pretty much all of them on the EP, B Grade University that I put out last year, like that was me like writing all the parts and then like going to the studio with that. And I think like that like sort of like era was, yeah, the turning point of that sort of like knowing exactly what I want to say, sonically speaking. Yeah. Right.
And well, you kind of touched upon it already, but did you know when you went in your own direction, kind of what kind of music it would be, kind of the guitar based, and did you know that already?
No, not really. Like when I actually first started this, like there was like a keyboard player in there, and like I don't know, it was sort of almost more like bluesy or something. And then I think the more that I was, especially with Oscar Dawson, who's produced these two records, like, and he's like a big guitar dude, and sort of like learning more about like pedals and tone and playing, and you know, with me getting my guitar like chops better, because like, you know, from basic to not as basic, like it's been easier for me to sort of like have a bit of language to play around with as well, and yeah, and like really get into the guitar, and maybe that's why like it's more guitar based.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask. So did that once you kind of felt your chops were up to par a little bit more? Did it influence the way you wrote songs?
Totally. Yeah, I think I've definitely felt more confident and like and more melodic. Like because it's easier to play chords than to play melody on the guitar, I find. And so like it's, yeah, I feel like my writing has become more, maybe more melody driven and sort of like working with what I've got foundationally with chords and like pushing melody, as opposed to being like, okay, like how many, you know, how can I like express myself within chords to sort of like get stuff across. Yeah. So
thematically then, and now with a bit more life experience behind you, did that part of songwriting come as naturally as kind of the music?
Like lyrics?
Yeah.
No, I think lyrics have been the most natural part of it. Okay. Yeah, I think the music, I'm not, like, I think that I'm a better verbal communicator than I am a musician. Right. I very much believe that I don't really have that much, like, inherent musical ability. I've just, like, learned how to do it, and, like, by trial and error and a lot of things. But I think that I communicate, like, I've always been able to sort of communicate. And so just with, like, lyric writing, like, that's been a far more natural thing for me, which is interesting because a lot of people that I come across, they like hate writing lyrics. Like they like write the music, they're like, yeah, and then they get to the lyric part and they're like, oh, now we have to write the lyrics, like it sucks. But I'm kind of like, yes, like lyrics, like, you know, we can, you know, explore that.
So in that sense then, do you already have maybe a notebook where you write thoughts down and that kind of,
yeah, I've got like various like documents, like I've got like the iPhone notes and like the notes on my MacBook and an actual notebook and voice memos, and yeah, there's sort of like a few different pools where I can sort of like pull stuff out of or refer to if I get stuck.
So when the whole process for your album kind of came around, did you already know or pinpoint certain Also, this is what I would like to use. This is something I'd like to talk about. Did you already?
Yeah, like for sure. I think like when I write songs, like the start of the song always starts with, "This is the story."
Okay.
And like this is like the one line sentence of what this song's about. And so I had a couple of those like going into the record. Like one of them was like I always wanted to write a song about my brother. Like I always wanted to do it.
Why?
I think because it has never been a perfect relationship, for a variety of reasons. Although we are like very, very, very close. And I think that like especially with him and I, given our age difference, like we're only a little bit, like we're like 2 years apart or something. And, you know, also being like an older sister and a younger brother, like I've noticed that a lot of my friends who have like a similar, like they've got like a younger brother as well, like I found that we have a lot of the same stories, like about like that relationship, and sort of like it's kind of a bit rocky until like a certain point, and then all of a sudden you're like mates, you know. And I found that happened with my brother, and I was like, God, it's this like total like textbook thing. And I really wanted to like sort of write about it because I just heard it, like, you know, when you actually discuss it with someone, like I just kept hearing it, and I was like, oh, that's like an interesting thing that no one really talks about until they're kind of like asked. So like that was one of them, and then yeah, like a bunch of other, you know, just like sort of little things that had happened in my, like actual events that had happened in my life where I was like, I'm gonna write a song about that, or like, or even just like sort of like made up scenarios, like as well, yeah.
So that doesn't have to be completely autobiographical?
No, like I mean, like the one song on the record that is like just like a story is this song called Let's Call It a Day, which is like I met this guy who was like going out with a friend of mine at the time, and I remember meeting him and I was like, oh, like you suck, like you're really annoying. And it was just like, why is my friend going out with this guy, like he's just the worst. And I remember going home and I was just like, oh, imagine going on a date with someone like that, and you just want to like get out of it, like, and you just want to be like, let's just leave it, like, you know, we'll split the bill, like I'll just go home, like, you know, let's never come back to this.
Right.
And so I like wrote this song about this sort of like hypothetical situation where you're on a date with someone and you're like, this person sucks.